Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going strictly back to basics to demystify what is basically the ultimate rulebook for our modern economy, business law. Whether you're a budding entrepreneur, a new employee, or honestly just someone who buys stuff online, this legal framework quietly dictates almost every single transaction you make. So we're going to break down exactly what it is, why it actually matters, and the key terms you need to know as a beginner. Just think about it for a second. What actually keeps the business world from turning into a total chaotic Wild West? Without rules, commerce would be incredibly unpredictable, right? It'd be full of exploitation, broken promises, and just outright fraud. So a very specific framework had to be created to protect everyday people, ensuring that both the buyer and the seller can actually trust the system. Okay, let's dive right in with Section 1, Defining Business Law. So you'll often hear it called mercantile law, trade law, or commercial law, but honestly, they all mean the exact same thing. Business law is simply the framework of rules and regulations for business entities. Its main goal? To protect everyday people from fraud and make sure that when a deal is struck, everyone plays fair. It guarantees that if you make a deal regarding business property, the rights and obligations of every single person involved are crystal clear. But, it's not just about simple trading anymore. As businesses have evolved from basic market stalls into these massive global operations, the rules have had to evolve right alongside them. The increasing complexity of the modern business world has massively enlarged the scope of this law. Today, it goes way beyond just signing a piece of paper. It includes laws relating to the environment, pollution, consumer protection, and keeping competition fair. It's kind of like an invisible shield around every modern market. Moving right along, let's look at Section 2, the objectives of the law. The goals here are highly practical. First off, it helps the government establish proper tax systems based on the specific type of business people do. But it's also really focused on the human element, ensuring equitable work cultures, mandating things like employee state insurance and health coverage, and stepping in during major crises like massive strikes or lockouts. Finally, it acts as a referee. It makes sure companies are competing fairly instead of using dirty tactics to destroy each other. Which brings us to Section 3, why business law matters. So why should we care? Well, business law is literally the foundation of any enterprise. It dictates how you register a company and who owns what. It protects employees by making sure salaries and contracts are fair, while also outlining the profit-sharing rights for stakeholders. But most importantly, it creates equilibrium. By enforcing the same rules across the board, it delivers equal justice to customers, labor, and management alike. And it guarantees that if you break the rules, you will face consequences, which drastically cuts down on fraud. I absolutely love this direct phrasing right from our source material, because it just perfectly captures the essence of legal agreements. Think of a contract not just as a boring piece of paper, but as evidence and a time-making machine. It locks in a promise right then and there, setting up a timeline that keeps everyone honest, ensures projects get done on schedule, and stops fraud before it even starts. All right, let's get into Section 4, Types of Business Law. Now, what this actually looks like can vary quite a bit depending on where you are. In many countries, it's organized into these big, broad categories like employment law, intellectual property law, or tax law. But in India, the study of business law is rooted in very specific, distinct legislative acts. A beginner student there won't just study general ideas. They'll study the exact text of the Indian Contract Act of 1872, the Trade Unions Act of 1926, and more modern ones like the Companies Act of 2013 or the Consumer Protection Act of 2019. And this is brilliantly illustrated right on the cover of standard exam prep notes for beginner students. You don't just study vague concepts, you dive into the exact historical documents. The Indian Contract Act of 1872, the Sale of Goods Act of 1930, the IT Act from 2000. These aren't just theoretical ideas floating out in the ether. They are specific, concrete frameworks that are still completely governing the market today. Let's wrap things up with Section 5, Key Mercantile Terms. First up is a term we all use, consumer. But legally speaking, a consumer is a person who buys goods or services strictly for personal self-use. This covers brick-and-mortar stores, online shopping, even teleshopping. However, the catch is that it strictly excludes anyone purchasing goods for resale. If you buy a laptop to use in your living room, you're a consumer. If you buy 50 laptops to resell at your shop, you're a business, and totally different rules apply. Next up, unfair trade practices. Sure, we all know this covers false representations and misleading ads. But what's super interesting under modern laws, like that new Consumer Protection Act, is that this explicitly includes the unauthorized sharing of your personal information. Yep, your data privacy is officially a massive part of business law now. Then we have the mercantile agent. Think of them as the legally recognized middleman. It's an agent who has the customary authority during the ordinary course of business to sell goods, consign goods for sale, buy them, or even raise money using goods as security. They're essentially the authorized grease in the wheels of commerce. Fourth is future goods. Believe it or not, business law actually has rules for things that literally don't exist yet. Future goods are items that will only be manufactured, produced, or acquired by the seller after you've already made the contract of sale. Think about commissioning a custom piece of furniture or pre-ordering a car that hasn't even been built yet. The law anticipates that exact transaction and protects you. And finally, we have the term insolvent. If a business person just straight up stops paying their debts in the ordinary course of business, or simply cannot pay the money they owe as those debts become due, the law officially classifies them as insolvent. It doesn't even matter if they haven't formally declared bankruptcy yet, just the inability to pay as debts mature triggers this legal definition. So what's the big takeaway here? Mercantile law is this essential, constantly evolving shield for our economy. From the Indian Contract Act written way back in 1872 to modern regulations protecting our digital privacy today, these rules are what maintain equilibrium. They keep the market fair, they punish fraud, and they ensure that a promise made in business is a promise kept. As commerce keeps expanding into new digital and global frontiers, it really leaves us wondering, how will this ultimate rulebook rewrite itself for the businesses of tomorrow? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.